Hi, welcome to Mama Yoga Women's Workshop. This will be a 2-hour offering. It is my SEVA project, which is part of my 300-hour yoga teacher training. It's my final project. And SEVA is a project that all teachers do when they're finishing their 300-hour training. They offer a community workshop and accept donations that can be delivered to a charity of choice. So I hope you will consider supporting the charity that I've chosen. So this workshop is meant to embrace and replenish everything that is motherhood and everything that women do as mothers. Thinking back to my first pregnancy and entering into motherhood, I just had no idea what I was in for. Just the sleeping alone, during pregnancy, just how uncomfortable you are in your body, especially as you get bigger and bigger. And then once that little baby is born, it is so hard to keep those tiny people asleep at night. And it was exhausting. And I just had no idea how mentally taxing that would be, to have that kind of sleep deprivation night after night after night. And once my youngest daughter, grew a little bigger, she turned into a toddler, and she had a lot of opinions, and she had a lot of emotions. And so all of this kind of this physical and physical kind of depletion and exhaustion that gave way to, okay, now I need to learn some new skills to handle the emotions of this little person who has big feelings. So then motherhood becomes a whole other kind of a head game, where you have to read books and you have to educate yourself in all of these parenting techniques. And part of the reason I wanted to offer this workshop is because I feel like the female experience and the mother experience is so different than it probably was, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, when we lived in these tight-knit communities and villages, and we had support of family members around us and other women around us, our elders, friends, aunts, cousins, just other women, sitting around doing their work together, talking together, commiserating together. The modern term for this would be co-regulating, right? So that kind of communal environment helps us co-regulate with each other, which means everything that we're holding inside, all of that mental work, the emotional work, the physical work, when we can share in community with others, it not only do we feel better emotionally and more settled in our minds because we've gotten to share maybe verbally and just in proximity to other people, but also the internal experience of our physical bodies is regulated. So our nervous system settles down. All the things that we're after in this modern world when we're trying to practice meditation and thinking about vagal nerve tone, all of that stuff. It's really just pointed towards settling and regulating and finding peace and coming back to center, coming back to wholeness. So back to, the journey of motherhood. It took until, I guess, after my second daughter was 1 when I started a regular yoga practice, and it made all the difference in the world to me. It didn't help me feel better all the time, which is a conversation that I've gotten into recently with another mother, fellow mother. It's not like every yoga practice is a miracle or, some kind of balm that just solves every problem and heals everything immediately. But what I've found over the years of my practice is that it makes me feel whole. And that, to me, is more important than anything. It connects all of those different aspects of myself, so the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, all of those components come together on the mat, and this little rectangle is this kind of sacred space where I can finally slow down and just step out of that frenzied pace of the world. And sometimes it's really, really hard to get to the mat and to allow things to settle and to allow that mind to settle and open up to space for new thoughts to come in. Another thing that I remember post-pregnancies, so I have 3 daughters, after I was done with all the pregnancies and childbirths and postpartum days and recovering, I just found that no matter how much yoga I practiced, no matter what other kind of cardio I was doing, spin or walking, any of that stuff, my body was never the same. It's just, growing 3 humans that passed through my body, and then feeding them through my body and carrying them with my body. I feel like I physically have never been the same since then. And it's taken a long time to come to peace with that. Just coming to peace with this belly that has stretched so big 3 times, and these breasts that have fed my babies. And I think part of the mother experience is to journey through these different transitions that we go through, from carrying that baby to caring for the baby to helping facilitate the growth of this person as they walk through the world, and then having self-care and self-awareness through all of that. So remembering to take the time to just really listen. What is your experience? What is your experience as a person, as a woman, as a mother? I remember after my 3rd daughter was born and she was just a little infant, and I got to go to the yoga studio one weekend morning to practice, and my husband was taking care of our 3 girls, and I was in the yoga studio practicing, and this mantra just popped into my head, and it just kept looping, and it was just this little phrase, I am here, I am here. And it reminded me of Horton Hears a Who. Do you remember that Dr. Seuss book? The elephant and the little who's in Whoville, and only Horton can hear them, and they had these tiny little voices, and they were saying, we are here, we are here. And I just felt like I had this voice inside me that's saying, I am here. And what that meant was, first of all, I'm a separate person. It's an amazing, miraculous experience to carry another human inside your own body for 9 months, and then to give birth to this person, and then to feed this person with your body, to carry this person, and they're attached to you, from inside your body to nursing, to the holding, to, the hand holding, the facilitating, all of those things. They're very much attached to you. And so to have that separate experience, me, the person, here in this space, and a person who has my own experience and my own thoughts and my own sensations, it was really powerful. And for that time, during those infancy times, I just kept coming back to that. I am here. And it also meant grounding. I am here now, taking up this space in this moment. And so that's mindfulness, right? That's tuning into the present moment with awareness, without judging, just observing what is in that moment. And so that time in the yoga studio, it was just me practicing. And that gave me space to really experience whatever was happening back at home. I could have that space to carve out to observe and reflect and replenish and renew. And then when I would step back into the house after those yoga sessions, it was chaos, right? There would be a young child and a toddler and a baby, and it's chaos. So in order to mentally prepare ourselves for that, and as our children get older, there's school, there's routines, there's homework, there's practices, there's other feelings as they go through life. So there's so much that we have to bear and hold as mothers. And so this yoga practice is really a way to tune into our own needs and to tune into our bodies, to accept the current state of our body, whatever that is, to honor the fact that we have given birth to humans and we have cared for those humans, and it's changed us. It's changed us physically and mentally and emotionally, and that's okay. So it's just meeting our body where it is now and finding out what can I give to that body now. So there are a few areas that I want to target in this practice today. The main areas that I've noticed in my body that have changed and I think are pretty typical for mothers. So the most obvious is pelvic floor, right? So all that stretching and weakening through pregnancy and childbirth. So we'll incorporate some different short practice exercises to help strengthen the pelvic floor. And we'll tune into it during some moments in our general longer practice that we'll do today. Another area is the lower back. So this is due to the abdominal weakness and the misalignment that can happen during the pregnancy period and that maybe never quite comes back into shape. So I've noticed in my body that I have this lordosis, it's called. So it's this bigger curve in the lower back. And I mean, all those years of holding this big belly forward, right? Now I can look in the mirror and I can tuck my pelvis under and then pull my abs up and try to get that really nice flat belly, and then I go, it just pops back out again. It's just the alignment of my body has changed, and I can do some things about that. I can work with that in subtle ways during yoga practice and try to return my pelvis to a more neutral position. I can work on my abdominal strengthening, but I also feel like that is just part of my body's transition to who I am now. And so I try to work with that curve and knowing that my belly is always probably going to be weaker than it was when I was in my 20s. I've also noticed this kyphosis, it's called, so it's like this rounding of the upper back. And I think that's a very common modern kind of shape to have because of all the computer time we have and all the time on our devices. For me, I felt like that rounding of the upper back really happened with all the carrying of babies. It was all, the baby carriers, the ergos and the slings and the holding and, holding on the hip that's going to make one hip higher than the other. And there was so much of that weight-bearing time caring for these 3 children over the years that I found that rounding in the back. And so I do try to practice during my yoga practices to open in ways that feel right to my body, and also to pay attention if I'm opening and splaying out. Sometimes that's just splaying out my core and my abs too, which makes the whole abdominal separation and the core weakness more challenging for me. So there's a balance in all of this. So we'll incorporate some gentle practices today to help work with those different alignments in the body. I also noticed that specifically with the core, there are a lot of things in yoga that just don't feel right to my body. And I've had to come to peace over the years with modifying. So modifying my practice. It's a lot easier to do in a home practice when you're by yourself and you're just, following along with an online class or just going through your own practice. In the studio, when you're next to people who may or may not have had the same body experience as you. Maybe there are some younger women in the studio who have never carried a baby before. And it's, I think, a natural human inclination to want to keep up. You want to make the same shapes in your body as your neighbor on their mat is making in their body and that the teacher's cueing. But I noticed things like holding plank, doing regular sit-ups, regular crunches, leg drops, bicycles, like bicycle ab crunches, and especially boat pose, those things, I can just feel that they're wrong in my body. And it's based around this abdominal separation that's never quite healed up. So, you know, I definitely tried with yoga, and I did physical therapy afterwards, trying to target the abdominal separation. And the physical therapist said it might never close up. And she said it's kind of a mystery. Some bodies close up, you know, in that space between the abs, and some bodies don't. And they have never really been able to figure out why. It doesn't have to do with the mother's body weight or the baby's birth weight. It doesn't have to do with exercise or how active they are during pregnancy, before pregnancy, after pregnancy. You know, whether they do physical therapy or not. She said the only surefire way is surgery to close it, and I chose not to do that. So I tried to work with it with physical therapy and body alignment and yoga, and I've learned a lot about the deep layers of the abdominals and how to strengthen those in a body that has the abdominal separation, and how to just honor the space that remains after these pregnancies. So there's space here that will never close, and so I'm quite aware when I'm doing my abdominal exercises which poses aggravate that space. So when the obliques over-engage and start to pull out to the sides, I might feel some sensation in the lower back that doesn't feel right. I can just tell that it doesn't feel strong and pulled in, you know, like I used to feel before having my pregnancies, where if my abs were engaging, it felt like this kind of shield in the front. And that's one of the abdominal's functions, is to protect those internal organs inside. And so now that the shield has opened a little bit in the middle, there's some vulnerability there. And so when I'm moving through my core portion of my yoga practices, I modify and I choose some different poses. So we'll be incorporating some of those today, and I hope I can share those with any other women who have felt like their core has just never quite been the same, and that doing crunches and sit-ups and planks and all these things is just not helping. I hope that I can help with that today in this workshop, and also in future videos that I'll be recording and sharing. So that is the introduction to today's workshop. Today you will need your yoga mat, maybe some water if you want, wear comfortable clothes, get your stretchy pants out, and you might want to find 2 blocks, yoga blocks, or something else that you could use as a substitute. You can use a couple thick books, you can use some small pillows. So we'll be incorporating those into our heart opening practices. All right, meet you on the mat. Namaste.